Hello, here we are with yet another lecture about custom functions. And in this specific lecture, I'm going to explain you the difference between return and print. Specifically, you will understand when to use one or the other. And so, I've created a file, a Python file with a nano text editor. I called it returnprint.py. That's the name of the file. And I have two functions in here that I have created. So the first, I called it returning. It has no parameters, and all this function is doing is it's executing this return 10 statement. So it's returning number 10. In reality, you'd never need a function that returns number 10, but this works to explain my idea. And then we have another function. I called it printing. It has no parameters, and all it does is it executes this function, so the print function. The print function will print out number 100. And here I'm calling the returning function, and here I'm calling the printing function. So let me go ahead and Ctrl X and Y, enter, to save the script, and use Python 3 to execute the script. You see that we got 100 executed. So keep that in mind, 100. Why did we get 100 executed? And why didn't we get 10? Well, that's because the returning function is not printing out, so it doesn't have any print function. It's true that when we use the interactive shell and we had a function that had a return statement inside, and then we just called the function and we got the output printed out. Well, that's because that's how the interactive shell works, actually. So basically, when you call a function or when you just call a variable without a print function, it will just print out the output because it thinks that your purpose was actually to see the output of that function. So basically, the interactive shell will implicitly add like a print function in your function call or in your variable, and it will print out the output of that function. But this is not how it works on a Python file, on a Python program. So in a Python file, you want to be explicit, which is in this case, if you want to print out the output of this function, you want to use a print statement, the print function, sorry. So Ctrl X, Y, enter, execute, and you'll see that in this case now we got 10 printed out correctly. Now the question remains, should we use return or should we use print? Both of them seem to be doing the same thing. Well, the short answer is you should use a return, the return statement, almost always. I'll tell you the reason why. In this case, our interest was to actually just print out the value, but what if you want to reuse the output of your function? So let's say we want to add 20 to the output of the function, because in reality, that's what you're going to do with your function outputs. You're not going to simply print out the function outputs all the time. Most of the time you're going to reuse the output, like to add other numbers to that or manipulate it or any other things. So if you do this now, and if we do the same for this plus 20 and execute, see what you get. So you get 30, which is the output of 10 plus 20. So 10 was the output of the function, and 20 was what we added to the output. Then we get 100, and then we get this error. It says non-type and int cannot be added to each other. So non-type is actually the output of this function. It's a non-type because this function is not returning anything. Actually, when there is no return statement in a function, the function will return none, which is a specific type in Python. You can actually check that. Let me cut these lines with Ctrl K. So print type returning with those brackets there, another bracket, for the print function, and print type print. And so we also need a third closing bracket. So 1, 2, 3 opening brackets, 1, 2, 3 closing brackets, and the same goes for this one in here. Execute again, and this is what you get. So you get class int. So the output of the function which has a return keyword is actually an integer. So number 10 is actually an integer. Or in other words, the output of the function is an integer in this case. So the type. But the type of the function that doesn't have a return keyword is non-type. So when the function doesn't have a return statement, then Python implicitly applies return none. So the none object. Therefore, you should use return whenever you can to return your values, and then use the print function in here to print out the value of the function if you like, to print it out. Otherwise, you'd get this specific Python type. So that's the non-type that we got there, class non-type. This is what Python will return when there is no return keyword. Yeah, that's about return and print, and I'll talk to you later.